Guys, it's Jessica, and I want to welcome you to episode 6 of The Nevers. I made it! It's the last one. I wouldn't have said this before I saw episode 6, but after seeing it, man, it has been a long and wild and slightly weird journey. If you have not seen episode 6, do not watch this video. There are so many spoilers, and episode 6 is a thing that you have got to experience. I have so many feelings, and I can't wait to dive into them. But before we get started on that, let me first remind you that The Nevers is written, produced, and directed by Joss Whedon, and that he has had some allegations of abusing people in the workplace. If you want to hear a fuller discussion on Joss Whedon's allegations and what people do or don't think about them, feel free to check out a conversation I had with Daniel that I'm going to go ahead and link in the iCard above. Moving on into episode 6. I think I'm just going to start with like some raw emotional reactions. I think its placement in the series is terrible. I know this is supposed to be a mid-season finale because technically there are 4 more episodes, but realistically, I think they're not scheduled to come out till 2022 at this point in time. So really, episode 6 has gone from being a mid-season finale to a season finale. There are parts of this episode that work well if it had been placed differently in the story, but where its placement is in the story, this episode really frustrated me. And what frustrated me the most is things that I really like and think are a lot of fun made me angry. The episode starts us off in the far future, and I know a lot of people said that they weren't sure what was going on there and they were confused. In my head, it clicked right away like,
oh, we've been speculating about Amalia. This is the future that Amalia has come from.
And on top of that, it helps that I have seen a lot of Joss Whedon films. The writing, the lighting, all of that as far as the future part goes is very familiar from Firefly. This week even more the jump in season 2 of Dollhouse. It feels like he recreated that here in The Nevers. And not in a positive way. I think he executed it far better in Dollhouse than he has here. Probably because I care about the characters in Dollhouse, and he has done nothing to establish like an emotional connection for me and most of the characters. And even some of the characters that I do feel a little bit emotionally invested in, like I'm starting to like Amalia and I'm starting to like Penance. They're not in the future scenes, or at least their actors aren't in the future scenes. So I am looking around looking for familiar faces and not seeing them, where like if I had been watching a Firefly episode or I've been watching the Dollhouse season finale, there are familiar faces that I've been following, that I know, that I care about, that I want to catch up on. And I'm not getting that here in this episode. This is the season finale. This is the last time I'm going to see the Nevers for a year. And the first third of it is about a bunch of new characters I've never effing met before. Are you kidding me? Like, that's not what I signed up for. I was looking for some kind of break or closure for the characters that I knew, or for the storyline that I'd been watching, which at this point in time, the storyline has been keeping the Touch people safe and finding the Galanthe. So I want either some kind of breakthrough from the doctor, I want some kind of like safe harbor for the orphanage, or I want them to get the Galanthe and it to hatch, and for like us to see the creature and all the orphans are there, like things are gonna be different now and close like that. Those are the endings that would have been good to me for a season finale. None of that has anything to do with spending the first third in the future with a bunch of characters I don't know. And it's more frustrating to me because they're throwing out a lot of information and a lot of words and phrasing and stuff that like I just don't have any frame of reference for, and I'm not going to get any frame of reference for until 2022, if ever. It's not that I didn't care about that stuff, but it was hard because there were so many questions, so many things I wanted to know, and I knew I was not possibly ever getting that from this show. It's just like this random thing they threw in, and instead of it being like good storytelling, immersive storytelling, interesting storytelling, because of its placement at the end of episode 6, after all these little hints and allusions leading up to it, it felt more like a
yes, we're so smug. We want you to look back at what you have seen previously and realize that we are the best and the smartest of storytellers. There were so many hints to this episode. And now you have to watch the whole thing over again to get the true meaning.
And I just think that's some smug asshole bullshit, if I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't think that's good storytelling. I don't think it's fun. And the few places where it works, like that kind of scenario works in The Usual Suspects. for example. Even then it's a little smug, but it's like kind of fun and tongue-in-cheek, and you don't have to rewatch the whole thing to get it. I think here, if you haven't been paying very close attention to the episodes, because they are coming out in a weekly schedule instead of you sitting down in a block and getting it in a movie, makes you have to go back and rewatch again. And even if you have been watching regularly and watching the episodes more than once, because I have been watching weekly, I've been paying a lot of attention, I've often been taking notes while watching them, and I've been watching the episodes more than once, and I've been discussing them with my husband, who was also watching. Also, I've been in the forums, so I've been getting like the maximum you can get from this show. Even with all of that, for me to like fully get what's happening in this first third, I would still probably have to rewatch everything. And you know what? I don't want to. It's not that good. And it just makes me think this first third should have either been in episode 1, episode 2, or episode 3. But no matter how you slice it, this first future third needed to go in the beginning of the show. And that way I can enjoy those hints and tells knowing about this and putting more information together with the future instead of the other way around. So I don't think this storytelling method was effective. Also, the pacing here in this future part is very slow. Like, I know there's a lot of things going on and it's making me have a lot of questions, but I have ants in my pants to get back to what I know. I know this is the last episode and I don't want to spend all this time on an introduction of something new. So in that regard, even though I thought the scenes were interesting and there was a lot of interesting information being presented, I also just wanted the future part to be over. Both my husband and I looked at each other and said,
"This is still going? When are we going to be done with this?"
We wanted to continue the story that we were already part of. And I think a lot of people probably felt that way. I know we're all talking about how clever it is. There's a lot that's clever about it, but its placement just makes me angry. And it's hard for me to get over that anger to praise and acknowledge some of the clever and interesting elements that have come out of it. The second part of this episode, the Molly backstory, I don't understand why we have that at all. That woman is dead. We understood that, or at least I understood that, after I saw that the Galanthe had taken Stripe. That Stripe had tried to kill herself. The Galanthe had taken her soul or her conscience or her essence, whatever you want to call it, and put it in Amalia. And I had understood from episode 1, where I'd seen Amalia had tried to kill herself, that her soul had vacated and Stripe had gone in. And I didn't need any more information to put those pieces together. Why did we have so much about this woman's miserable life here? It's not related to this story. It's really weird and out of place. And the other thing is I finally got my asylum flashback. I don't know if you guys remember in my Nevers episode 4, I predicted that we were going to get a flashback of Malady in the asylum, and we didn't get that. Instead, we got episode 5 Hanged, which was a mess. I stand by, after episode 4, episode 5 should have been this asylum flashback, and we should have got this flashback from Malady's point of view, because Malady is the interesting character here, and I really want to know how she went from this to the crazy person we saw on stage at the Opera House, to the plotting and calculated person we see in episode 5. And of course, in my perfect world, we would have got this future scene way in the front. So that's the other thing. We're getting my new episode 5 here with the asylum stuff, where we as the audience would know that Amalia is Stripe. I just know that we could have got like a more in-depth look at what a Victorian asylum looked like, and maybe we could have seen what was going on in Dr. Hug's lab too, because we could have had Molly tell him about the light and then gone with Dr. Hug and maybe seen that transformation from like that innocent, trusting, slightly nervous, maybe a little unstable woman into like a psychopathic killer. And that would have helped prep us for the episode, for the stuff that happens in episode 5. And then we go into the actual Galanthe, which is what I thought the whole episode was going to be about, and we just get flashes of the break-in, we get Amalia with some one-on-one time, and we get her fighting her way out, and it's like,
Okay, fine. This is gonna be all the information I have until 2022.
this might have been okay as an episode when it was originally planned for 10 episodes and I had 4 more left. This might have even been a great episode if there were 4 more episodes left. The problem is that there's not, and that the writing team, the production team, HBO have showed an incredible lack of ability to adapt and make a good story with the time and elements that they have left. And I I don't know how much of this is HBO, how much of this is on the writers. I don't know if the writers were like,
hey, we really need to delay this.
And HBO was like,
I need content, it's going out.
Or if HBO was like,
we've put so much money in this, something has to go out.
And the writers had done too much and couldn't take it back. I really don't know where they were in production, what they had shot and what they hadn't shot, but it just seems like with the pieces they have and a little bit of reshoots, they could have told a good story here. I think I'm frustrated because I can see so many really thoughtful, well-crafted pieces. I can see so many things that obviously have love and care, and it is not coming together. It's not working at all. Between like this Josh Whedon debate, its general lack of interest in bad reviews, its weird presentation, partially due to COVID, partially because this is what was always intended, because according to the writers, this episode 6 was always intended this way. This is not a COVID problem. This is what they wanted. I just feel like no one said to them,
you know, this is the last thing someone's gonna see for over a year. Do you want this weird, slow, sloppy pacing? Do you want to just drop a bunch of exposition bombs on people before you leave?
Because that's the other thing, is this future stuff is really cool and interesting, but at this point in time, since it doesn't really connect to anything else in the story, it just explains the story. Basically, the first third is exposition. And then the Molly stuff, since Molly is dead and Stripe has taken over her body, is all exposition. We've seen nothing from Molly's past life that implies that that will ever be relevant. So this next third of this is exposition. The asylum scene, like a training montage. They took what I thought could have been emotionally interesting and turned it into a training montage. And then we just get like, what, 5 to 10 minutes in the back half where Amalia actually meets the Galanthe. And then we get a bunch of like ripples or premonitions from Amalia. So again, that's all exposition too, except it's future exposition for something that's not happening until 2022. I guess I'm saying that I am going to keep watching when 2022 happens. If it happens, I'm legitimately concerned that we're never going to see the last 4 episodes of this season. And I don't see good things for this show in the future right now. I think there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. The breaks, the pauses, it's going to kill a lot of fan enthusiasm. And I think too, there was no thought about how they would draw fans into this. I think they thought the name Josh Whedon was going to do it all. And perhaps prior to the controversy that came out, it would have. Josh Whedon has always had a very loyal sense of followers, people who really enjoy the way he tells stories and the kinds of stories he tells. And as a group, we're usually more than willing to give him lots of time. He never has to have a good hard start. I think just like the fact that he was overconfident, thought that he could tell a story his own way in his own pacing and his fans would allow it, combined with the scandal, so now that's not happening, and then extra combined with COVID, has really just hurt this show in a way that I'm not sure that it can recover. I'm pretty sad about it, if I'm going to be honest, because there's a lot of things in this show I like. I still like the idea, and I still like certain characters. I feel like the show started in the wrong place. Like the stuff that's interesting either happened in the far future or in the past, and the part that we're watching now is the boring part. But I was willing to get through that boring part to see something interesting or to let the story further unfold. And at this point in time, I'm just not sure we're ever gonna get it, and that makes me sad. Anyways, we've come to the end of the first 6 episodes of The Nevers. I think I am going to do a workshop on these 6 episodes where I replace the pieces, just because after seeing this 6th episode, I feel like I can. So I think that's going to come out next week. I think I want to do something about whether or not I feel like The Nevers is feminist. And then after that, we're going to move on to something else, unless you guys want to hear more about The Nevers. It's possible we'll move on before that too. These are like 2 ideas I have that I'm still outlining and playing out, but like if there's not a lot of desire to see them, then maybe we will just move on. The show I'm currently thinking about watching is Solos, which is an Amazon Prime release that is going to have different fantasy and science fiction elements in it. Even though the whole season will be out at one time, I'll do a weekly episode watch like I'm doing right now. I want to thank you guys for watching. Want to let you know that we're also going to be doing a wrap-up on Shadow and Bone this Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that if you're liking the fantasy science fiction TV show stuff. And I put out weekly content here on the channel on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. with a science fiction fantasy related theme. And I put out a more casual weekly content here on Sundays at 1 p.m. Usually show specific related, and I think I'm going to keep trying to keep it to shows because it's easier to wrap that up into like a 15-minute blurb. Let me know if you can't wait for the next 4 episodes of The Nevers, or if you are sitting here thinking episode 6 ruined it for you. Do you like the future stuff better or the Victorian stuff? Do you like the two mixed like this? Let me know in those comments. Other than that, please hit the like button here, and if you're enjoying this style of content, please consider subscribing to my channel for more updates on when content comes out. Thanks! Hope you have a great day. Bye!